I do want to introduce Nikita. Welcome, Nikita Shah. Nikita is an international development professional who founded Hyphen Poetry, and she has a background in migration, modern slavery, and she also founded the Colonial Hangover Project. Nikita is also a dancer, and I have worked with Nikita, one of the poetry's processes she did with us last year, and it was simply amazing. I think through those 4 or 5 sessions, she was really able to move me in ways that without poetry I don't think would have happened. So I feel really, really privileged that you are here with us again, Nikita, at the Healing Solidarity 2021 conference. And welcome, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely intro. And just thank you all so much for joining my session today. And thank you to Healing Solidarity for having me once again. I'm really, really excited to be here and to have this session. I'm going to quickly share my screen and then we can jump straight into this. Can you just let me know if you can see my screen? Yep.
I can see it.
I cannot see my own screen, so okay, now I can see it. Fab. Okay, yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this conference this year. I think it's really, really interesting. The format is really different, and it's not something that I've seen before, been part of before. And I'm just really excited to hold a space where we can write some poetry together, and to really center the idea of care and collectiveness, even though we're showing up as our individual selves. If at any point you do want to show your lovely faces and want to turn your camera on, that's fine. If you don't want to, you want to keep them off, that's also fine. Feel free to ask any questions or to drop any messages or just anything that you're feeling in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that as well. So to jump straight in, today I'm just going to give you a little bit more of an introduction around me and kind of my practice. I'm going to offer a breathing exercise, which you are welcome to join in, and you're also welcome to not do if you want to. I'm going to set the intention for the session, and then I'm going to go the team. And then we're just going to jump straight into kind of writing, and I will guide you through that process. And towards the end, I'd love to hold a space where we can share some of our poetry. And if we don't want to share our poetry, then maybe just sharing some reflections about how we're feeling in that moment or how we felt during the session itself. Yeah, so to just jump into some intros. So as Roshni mentioned, I hold a bunch of different spaces. I'm a professional in the international development sphere in the sector. I'm also a dancer. I'm also a poet, and I kind of take a lot of my inspiration and influences from my world of performance through poetry and dancing, as both a teacher and as a student as well. And I've bridged that with kind of my professional work and looking at different thematic areas that I'm quite interested in. Through my work, I've developed a kind of decolonial performative lens through which I kind of see the world and try to kind of practice as well. And hyphen poetry is kind of what came about through that. So through hyphen poetry, I've been running workshops and facilitated a course on how to write poetry and perform it and kind of work through that, but also to kind of use it as a space for reflection and community practice as well. So yeah, just once again, thank you for joining me today. And let's go into a breathing exercise now. You're more than welcome to partake in this, but also I recognize that sometimes doing breath work can bring attention to your body in a way that isn't welcome. So if it doesn't feel safe for you to kind of go inside and explore that right now, then feel free to not do that. And something else that you may want to do is, if you can, and if you want to kind of do some movement instead, and just it may just be, you know, sitting at your desk, shaking your hands or your fingers or your feet, or just wiggling your toes, or maybe it's just kind of just to sit still and to not really experience anything, then that's fine as well. We're going to do 3 rounds of breathing. So as you inhale, I want you to start thinking about inhaling creativity. And as you exhale, I want you to think about lived experiences. So I want you to breathe in and kind of invite a sense of creativity. I want you to just hold whatever you're holding. As we hold our breath, that's just what you're going to hold. And as you exhale, I want you to exhale all of those lived experiences that you've got. So should we begin? So you can close your eyes, you can stand up, you can sit down, whatever you want to do. But here we go. So in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just a quick one, take a moment. If you want to do a couple more rounds, then feel free to. And in the meantime, I will set the intention whilst you're in your relaxed mode, hopefully. So there are 3 key intentions for today. The first is I intend to be open and free. The second is I intend to give myself permission to write without judgment and to let my thoughts and feelings guide me. And the third is I intend to be creative and playful. Now, I always like to ask everyone to kind of say these intentions themselves, just so it's kind of embedded in. So obviously you don't have to unmute yourselves. You can stay on mute. If you want to unmute yourselves and say this together, then that's fine too. But it'd be really great if you would join me as I reread these intentions, and I would want you to accept these intentions and kind of set them for yourselves. So the first one is, I intend to be open and free. Second, I intend to give
myself permission to write without judgment
and to let my thoughts and
feelings guide me.
The third is I intend to be creative
And playful.
Thank you. That was so lovely to hear people. Okay, so today's theme, I've been really thinking about the questions that the conference has posed, and there are 4 to 5 key questions that have come up. And as I was thinking about these questions, I was thinking, okay, what do I do for this session? And I landed on giving everybody the space to think differently about blank in international development and our collective and individual lives. And by that, I wanted to offer kind of some of the words that really stood out to me and kind of just jumped out, and I felt were important to reflect on. And those words are balance, rest, extractive, healing, and choice. And initially, I wanted this space to be, a super positive space where everyone goes away feeling good. And then I had to really think about it. And I was like, we don't always hold that positive, happy-go-lucky space, especially when we're at work or in the collective or in the in our individual lives as well. So I wanted to offer some words that could be interpreted in a way that could allow everyone to express a different type of emotion. It could be negative, it could be positive, it could be happy, it could be sad, it could be anger, it could be a whole range of different things. But the beauty of this is that you get to interpret it and to play around with it. And so just before I kind of move in and we start the practice, I just wanted to say a couple of words around these themes, around these themes. So of course, over the past year, we've all experienced, well, more than a year, we've all experienced the pandemic in different ways. And without a doubt, it's affected everybody in some way or someone that we know. And so the pandemic happened, but life also carried on, and life carried on in our personal lives and also at work. And I think everyone's had a lot to kind of juggle with, but also within our sector itself, a lot has been happening. And we spoke a lot about it last year during the conference as well. But, the themes of looking at kind of intersectionality and race and power and gender and systemic issues, infrastructure, all of these things, we continue to work on these issues, which is why I thought it was really important to think about kind of balance. How do we hold ourselves in a particular space? And how do we kind of find a sense of balance? Amidst that, how do we kind of centralize the idea of rest, and what does that now mean to us pre, during, and post-COVID, even though we're not really out post-COVID, but thinking about a sense of healing and what that means for us and how we can make choices to kind of practice healing. Thinking about the word extractive. Now, this could be, in terms of resource, thinking about our own energy that's maybe being extracted, thinking about kind of physical, tangible resources, but also thinking about the emotional element and on a global scale, as a collective, but also at an individual local scale as well. And then finally, choice, which is kind of the theme of the conference, and just thinking about the idea of recognizing that in some instances we may feel as though we don't have a choice, but maybe thinking about how we might be able to regain control and power over that and having a choice, and the flip to that as well. So really just understanding what choice means to you. So throughout this session, we're going to write a piece of poetry, and I would really invite you to choose one of these words, choose one of these themes, and to kind of go with it. So just have, a few seconds to have a look at this slide and just maybe think about which one of these words kind of calls to you, and if there's one that kind of resonates with you. And once you've kind of chosen something, maybe you can drop it into the chat so we can kind of know what everyone's drawn to. The first thing that we're going to do is to kind of start off with a quick reflection. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to kind of just have a moment to just check in with yourselves. How are you feeling right now? How have you felt in the past year? How do you want to feel moving forward? I often put these questions up, and I think they're really quick and easy, but they end up being quite deep and quite big questions. So I don't want you to feel stuck on any particular question. And I just want you to kind of just jot down the immediate things that come up. And if I can give you a couple of minutes to do that, then that would be good. And if you've got any questions so far, then just pop them into the chat and I can have a look. Okay, let me know if we've all had a moment to write something down in terms of a reflection. I'm going to take everyone's silence as a yes. Okay, so let's move on to kind of the writing segment. So I want you to take your chosen theme, and I should have flagged actually, does everybody have paper with them or something to write on or even to type on? If not, then quickly go and find something to scribble on. I'm assuming you will. But yeah, so if you can take your chosen theme and write it in the middle of your page, and I just want you to take a moment to reflect on this word, and just want you to really open up and kind of let any words or feelings or ideas just flow through your mind and flow through your fingertips and onto the page. So start writing down words or phrases, or maybe draw some images, or sketch a little doodle, whatever comes to mind. And think about kind of how you have experienced this theme previously, or how you're currently experiencing it now. And just reflect on maybe how you want to experience it differently. And as you're thinking about this, just be kind of cognizant of, are there any sounds or smells or textures that come to mind? Are there any colors that we could play with? But yeah, just kind of think about doing this as a little brain dump. And I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that. I'm just going to pop back to a previous slide so you can have a look at these words again in case it helps. You've got 1 more minute. Okay. So I'm gonna invite you to start thinking about writing. So I want you to have a look at your page and have a look at the different words or the phrases or the sentences or the doodles or the images, whatever you may have there, the colors, the textures, the smells. And I want you to just kind of have a look at that. So see if you can kind of make any connections to start weaving together a story. And what we're going to do from there is just kind of give ourselves the space to just write. We tend to have this kind of inner voice that we wrestle with. Sometimes we silence it, sometimes we want to louden it. But today we're just going to let that inner voice speak at whatever volume it wants to. So I just want you to be open, let the words flow, and just don't worry about kind of grammar and restricting yourself and making things perfect. It's not, today isn't about perfection. We're just here to write. And you don't have to worry about kind of the rules of grammar here either. So they behave differently in poetry. You don't have to write in English if you don't want to. I really welcome you to choose a language that you feel comfortable thinking, speaking, breathing, living in. And it's absolutely fine if towards the end, when it comes to sharing, if you want to share a poem that isn't in English, that's absolutely fine too. So don't feel restricted. You're also welcome to kind of code switch and kind of use English and use different languages or different dialects or anything that you want throughout. And if you're stuck, then you can ask me for a writing prompt and I'm happy to share one. But yeah, so just look at your mind map and think about how you might want to start weaving things together. Some of you may have already started writing, and that's fine too. So I'm going to give you all about 10 to 15 minutes to kind of write. And if you need any help, just drop me a message. You can either share it with the group or you can message me privately in the chat function as well. But yeah, go on, be free and write. How are we getting along? Does anyone have any questions? Do we want some more time to write?
I definitely need about 5 more minutes at least.
Yeah, that's fine. Just wanted to check in. Sorry. I'm going to give you about 3 more minutes to write, just because I want to make sure we've got some space to kind of share. Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause on your writing. You can finish your final sentence. Brilliant. So the next step that I usually go through is kind of an editing process. I don't want to focus too much on editing today, but I just wanted to talk you through it in case you wanted to pick this up after. So typically once you've written your piece, it's always good to do an edit. So as you're reading through your piece, you kind of might want to think about moving around different lines to see, how they fit. Thinking about restructuring your piece, you may feel like you had a few different ideas bouncing around in your mind, so you were able to write, a section over here, a section over here, and maybe another couple of lines over here. And at that point, you might want to start thinking about, okay, how do I really build this all together to make a full piece? You may, as you reread it, you may realize that you've used the same image in two places, but it's not fully connected or it's just repetitive. You may think about kind of changing the imagery, or you may build on it even more to kind of build a sense of repetition into this. You may also start thinking about, how is this going to be performed and how is this going to sound? So typically after you've kind of looked at your piece and you've thought about how it reads on paper and how it looks visually, you may want to move on to the second round of editing, which I kind of frame in the context of reading out loud and hearing what you're saying. So the type of poetry that I typically write is spoken word poetry, and for me that is meant to be spoken and performed. So it's really important that you do take some time to read your poem out loud and hear how each line sounds. So that's kind of your opportunity to think about the words that you're saying, how you want to emphasize different feelings and imagery in the way that you pronounce words and where you emphasize different things. It's an opportunity for you to play around with pauses and kind of think about building in some alliteration or building on words and imagery and the sentences and repetition. You may also want to think about your delivery. So are you going to kind of speed up an element of your poem, slow it down, thinking about kind of the emotion you want to engage with? So if you're kind of, performing and you're talking about a piece that you feel really tired in, maybe you really want to emphasize that tiredness by sounding heavier, by maybe speaking slower or kind of in a lower tone. You may also kind of give yourself prompts in your piece. So thinking about how you might use different forms of different forms of punctuation. So using exclamation points or question marks to kind of emphasize making the point to question something or to really pushing something ahead. Think about kind of using commas to remind yourself to take pauses, or, it doesn't have to, the normal rules of grammar don't need to apply. So you can use whatever you want, however you want. But most importantly, take a moment to give your piece a title. So I'm conscious of time and I want to make sure that we can kind of share if people are up for it. So I'm going to skip ahead to performance time and sharing. And I always like putting up this slide and having a "Mama, I made it" moment, because I feel like writing poetry can often be quite a process. And sometimes you are shocked to see that actually you managed to write something. Sometimes you're shocked at the fact that you weren't able to write much, and that's also okay. There are many days where I try to sit down and write something and just nothing comes out. And if I find it really frustrating, but I just need to walk away and come back to it. But it's all honestly part of the process, and that's okay. So today we've kind of gone through and figured out a way to write something, and we've had the chance to write it together as a collective. And I wanted to kind of open up this space to invite you all to share, what you've written, or perhaps maybe just share which theme you chose and why, or maybe talk about, just how you're feeling or just reflecting on this process. But I would really love to hear from all of you. So if you feel like sharing, then I would love to hear it. So I'm going to open up the space, and if you want to share, then either raise your hand, put something up in the chat, or just unmute yourselves and feel free to kick us off. And if no one wants to be the first person, should we take a moment to just share kind of what theme we picked? Maybe we could start off there. I am going to stop sharing my slides so we can have a moment to connect.
I am willing to be the brave one, but I also want to give it to our guests first. If anyone wants to jump in.
Not to put you on the spot, but Julie, you've turned your camera on. Do you want to share? Would you like to join in?
I'll share the theme. I'd actually been thinking of a different word, but then I actually ended up choosing balance for one of the obvious reasons of work-life balance and mama worker balance, but also trying to see it within kind of being open to what we've been talking about this week of like the idea around both passion and expertise, and then balancing that with true, authentic respect and humility. And then I also wrote something around like as a woman, and within my background of like taking space where I need to take space, but then also holding space for others and withdrawing when I need to. And so, yeah, so I was just thinking a lot around a lot of different themes of balance. So yeah, that's all I'll share for now.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for being the first person to share as well. It's almost very daunting being the first person, but I think that's really nice that you've been able to kind of reflect on some of the themes that have been coming up in the conference. And it's, yeah, there's a lot going on, being a mama and working and dealing with all of these issues. There is a lot. So yeah, you've piqued my interest to know what you've written, but I'm glad that you're able to kind of reflect on some of those things. And yeah, just once again, thank you for sharing. Who wants to go next? I've removed the spotlight because it was on me and I wasn't sure if everyone's faces were being seen. So I think it's just landed on Roshni's, but that's not me pointing you out.
I'm happy to go. It'll just, there's Jackie. Maybe Jackie first.
Hi, everyone. I can go. Thank you so much for having me. So I chose the word choice, and it was really interesting because I just started in the international development industry recently, and this really spoke to me. And my poem is called "Freedom to Choose," and it goes: I wanted to exercise my freedom, have agency, control, and a vision, but I found myself blinded by an illusion, powerless to imagine, susceptible to revision. Where is my agency, my truth, and my path forward? We're cogs in a machine, moving without a direction. Progress, order, growth are the rules of the system. Choice is an illusion, but the collective is our solution. We are free to choose, to speak to truth to power, to dare imagine a path forward, to take control of our vision, break the system and move to freedom. We're free to choose. We're free to choose.
Yeah, that was lovely. Oh my God, I can't believe you just wrote that. Well done. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of quick points there. So a couple of things that really stuck out to me, and I was just writing them down as you were forming your piece, was just this kind of play, the fact that you've just entered kind of the international development sector, but you've chosen words that kind of really illuminate what development has traditionally been known. So you're thinking about development, growth, and like progress, that kind of old school thinking about what development should really be, but then really contrasting it with kind of this idea of like choice and freedom and the collective in it as well. I feel like it was just really like cleverly done. So I just think that was really great. And just kind of thinking about the cogs in the system as well, I thought that was really nice visual that popped up in my mind as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That was great. How did you feel writing it and performing it?
I did, yeah, it kind of just flowed to me, and I think I'm writing it, I just saw a lot of the themes that come in. Like I feel like as someone who just joined, like I have so many dreams and but also like I also see the challenges and the reality, and so I feel hopeful when I put it down on paper.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Does anybody else want to go next and share? Jennifer, should we bring you in?
Happy to. Thank you so much, Julia and Jackie. This is titled "The Seizing Hasn't Stopped." My theme was extractivism, extractiveness. When do I break it to you that the problem you want to conquer, fix, manipulate may have no solution at all? At least not one your smart brain and my smart brain can solve. At least not one your generous heart and my empathetic heart can hold. How do I let you down easy enough to see that the suffering is rooted way down below the ground, where your ancestors' bones lie, where some others' ancestors were blown to bits, obliterated in the taking? Can I hold the mirror to your seeming obliviousness? Where do you feel the diamond drill bit hitting hard, impenetrable rock? Do you see the dirt soaked and saturated with grease where nothing can grow around this taking machine? Do you see its brand name, Do-Gooder Industries, on the machine label? Drain all you want, discard all you want. You'll never have what is truly ours. The solution you'll never own.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How did you write that so quickly? That's great. Thank you. There are so many gems in there as well. And I just love the do-gooder industry part as well. Like I love that idea of just seeing this like whatever yellow digger machine thing with just like do-gooder on the side, like people going in thinking they have good intentions but are actually still being extractive and potentially damaging. And I really like this. It's making me laugh because I think it's a funny image to have, that when people are like, oh, just keep digging, like you will come up with the solution, and it's that how you end it on, what do you think you're going to find, like the solution, like the joke's on you, like you can keep digging but you're just going to continuously perpetually being extractive rather than actually finding what you want. And I like the balance of kind of how you have the recognition of like people think that sitting in a room and coming up with these brilliant ideas is going to take you to the solution, but maybe we do just need to accept that there is no solution. That was great. Thank you so much for sharing. How do you feel having written that?
Thanks for that reflection. Yeah, I mean, I think as a woman who is, as a person socialized to be a woman, like touching my rage is hard sometimes, like this is a poem rooted in rage against that extractivism and that resistance that so many activists have to engage in order to be part of this system. And that's part of the themes that's been coming up in the conference. So it's vulnerable to like be in a dialogue with that person, even in a literary sense. Yeah. But I love that in the literary sense, I can just go for it.
Yeah.
Say it.
I like that. And I think it kind of it links back to kind of like Jackie's theme of freedom to just say what you want to say in that literary sense as well. So that's great. But yeah, thank you for sharing. Who is next?
I'm happy to share. Sorry, I've just turned my video on and realized I'm in the darkness. Apologies, I'm a bit gloomy. I'm not brave enough to read what I wrote, but I'll just reflect a little bit on the experience, if that's okay. And I guess it just struck me that, well, first of all, I should say this is the first session I've attended in the conference, because this week has turned out to be way more hectic than I had hoped for. So I feel a little bit like an imposter just dropping in halfway through, but thank you for holding the space. And it's probably the first poem I've written since I was about 12. So it's really like exploded my mind a little bit. And I chose the theme of rest. And I guess what came out for me, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move while I'm talking to you, because talking about rest, my dinner is in the oven. Embarrassingly, the alarm's just going off. So let me just turn that off.
Yeah. I love this. I love that we get to see the raw reality of life. This is really
so yeah, my theme was rest, and I guess my sort of reflection on the process was that I journal quite a lot, but what came out in my poem was really different to what comes out in my journaling. I think because, I don't know, maybe there was some sort of greater sense of freedom, or the way I was structuring my thoughts was quite different to how I might when I was journaling. So things kind of came up around like guilt and boldness and leadership, and I wrote this line about my wildest restful dreams, and kind of just sort of more, I suppose, more creative expressions of the sorts of things that I think about regularly. So yeah, thank you, Nikita. I really appreciated the opportunity to do it.
Well, thank you so much for joining, and it's absolutely fine if this is the first session that you've been able to attend. We're just really grateful that you've been able to join us in whatever space that you can. And I think it's really cool that you have a form of kind of writing and expression in terms of your journaling, but that you managed to tap into something different in this session through poetry. And even just the one line of, you know, your wildest restful dream, that's also already, it's quite exciting to think about, because when you think about your wildest dreams, you would never imagine them to be restful, you know. So I really like that as a line and as an image. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And just a quick question, actually, just to follow up, how did it feel to write poetry in comparison to journaling?
It felt kind of scary at the beginning. I was like, I almost didn't come, because I was like, well, I don't write poetry, so this isn't really a space for me. But then I thought, well, I haven't been to anything else, and I really want to come to something. So yeah, it felt a bit scary, but as soon as I started doing it, I was like, oh, why don't I do this more often? Like, this is cool. I'm enjoying the process. So yeah.
Thank you for having the courage to come, even if it was scary. But I'm glad you were able to write something. Thank you. I'm just going to hand over back to I think Roshni. No, well, yeah, I'm going to hand back over to Roshni, just so she can close. But I'll stick around if anybody wants to have a chat or share. And yeah, just again, thank you so much for joining, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure running this session for you.
Thank you, Nikita. Thank you so much. I think that was beyond fantastic. And I really agree with what you said, Natalie, about I think Nikita has that ability to make us all really get under the skin and suddenly start writing. I've been with her on sessions before. So, and also to recognize that Nikita also made a different choice, I think, this session to do something differently. So, and thank you to all of you for being so brave and sharing with us. I think that was, it's been an honor. And finally, just to say that Healing Solidarity is member supported. So please do help us sustain and support our work, and do pass the word out to your colleagues and your networks. And we would really love and hope to see you all many more times at this conference, and also at our other sessions that we run more regularly. That's it from us. officially. I think thank you once again for your time and for staying with us into your evenings or afternoons. And no, thank you. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you again soon.